Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English in Moments. I'm Elena, your host for today. If you're new here, we publish fresh English learning videos frequently on our channel to help you speak more naturally, understand real English with more confidence, and stop feeling like every conversation requires a mental translation project before you can open your mouth. Today's masterclass is part of our B2-C1 Daily Life Authentic English Conversations Practice Series, and I want to do something a little different with this one. Today's lesson works a little differently. Every so often, I'll pause and let you try answering out loud before I give you the natural version. And every so often, we'll do a quick recall moment, bringing back a phrase from earlier and using it again in a brand new situation. You'll also meet a few familiar faces throughout today's lesson, instead of 40 random strangers, a friend named Maya, a coworker named Jordan, and a neighbor named Mr. Alvarez. It just makes everything easier to remember. Today, we're covering a huge range of situations you have not heard in any of our previous episodes. Banking, the post office, the DMV, doctor visits, the pharmacy, the dentist, the vet, home repairs, dealing with a landlord, furniture deliveries, moving day, roommate conflicts, job interviews, asking for a raise, team meetings, performance reviews, a first week at a new job, networking events, freelance client work, the hair salon, buying a car, house hunting, insurance claims, the gym, grocery shopping, wedding planning, family gatherings, texting and video calls, making new friends as an adult, hobby groups, a hotel check-in problem, and more. Every single expression today is brand new. Nothing you've heard from us before. As always, you'll hear a basic response first, then a much more natural conversational upgrade. I'll break the key expression down, give you extra examples, and there will be plenty of chances to repeat sentences aloud. Please actually do this. Speaking the words yourself, even quietly, is what moves them from something you recognize into something you can produce. Before we start, make sure you're subscribed and the bell icon is on so you catch every new masterclass in this series. Get comfortable and let's get started. Let's begin with Maya. You're going to meet her several times today. Right now, imagine Maya calls you in a mild panic because she noticed a charge on her bank statement that she doesn't recognize. She's heading to the bank and asks what she should say. A basic sentence would be, "I have a question about this charge." A more natural, confident version is, "Hi, I was hoping you could help me sort out a charge I don't recognize on my account." Repeat that. "Hi, I was hoping you could help me sort out a charge I don't recognize on my account." Notice the phrase, "sort out." This means resolve or organize something that's currently confusing or messy. You could say, "I need to sort out a few things before we leave." Repeat, "I need to sort out a few things before we leave." Or, "Once we sort out the paperwork, we'll be all done." Repeat, "Once we sort out the paperwork, we'll be all done." The bank representative tells Maya, "Let me pull that up and take a closer look. It looks like it might have gone through twice by mistake." Maya could respond, "Oh, that would explain it. Is there any way to get that reversed?" Reversed. In banking and everyday English means undone or canceled. You can say, "Could this charge be reversed?" Or, "They reversed the fee once I explain the situation." Repeat, "They reversed the fee once I explain the situation." Now pause the video for a second. Before I continue, imagine you're Maya and the representative says, "I can take care of that for you right now." How would you respond in a warm, natural way? Here's one option. "That's a huge relief. Thank you for sorting that out so quickly." A huge relief describes strong reassurance after worry. You could say, finding my passport was a huge relief. Repeat, finding my passport was a huge relief. Let's shift now to a completely different errand, the post office, something we haven't touched in any earlier episode. Imagine you need to mail an important document and you're not sure which service to use. A basic sentence is, I need to send this. A stronger version is, I need this to arrive by Thursday at the latest. What would you recommend for something this time-sensitive? Time-sensitive describes something that must happen by a certain deadline or it loses its value. You could say, this contract is time-sensitive, so we can't afford any delays. Repeat, this contract is time-sensitive, so we can't afford any delays. The clerk might say, for something time-sensitive, I'd go with the overnight option. It's a bit pricier, but it guarantees next-day delivery. You could respond, that works for me. Better safe than sorry with something this important. Better safe than sorry is a well-known expression, meaning it's wiser to take a cautious approach than to risk a problem. You could say, I brought an extra charger. Better safe than sorry. Repeat, I brought an extra charger. Better safe than sorry. Suppose the clerk hands you a tracking number and says, you'll get updates along the way. You could respond, perfect. I'll keep an ear out for the confirmation. In this context, keep an ear out is a slightly playful cousin of paying attention, meaning you'll be listening or checking for something specific. You might say, keep an ear out for the doorbell. I'm expecting a delivery. Repeat, keep an ear out for the doorbell. I'm expecting a delivery. Now let's talk about something almost every adult has experienced: standing in a slow-moving line. Imagine you're at a government office and the line hasn't moved in what feels like ages. You turn to the stranger next to you and say, a basic sentence is, this line is slow. A far more natural version is, I feel like we've aged a year standing here. This is dramatic, exaggerated, and exactly how people actually talk in these moments. You could say, by the time we got seated, I felt like I'd aged a year. Repeat, by the time we got seated, I felt like I'd aged a year. The stranger might laugh and respond, right? I think they're running on island time back there. Running on island time is an informal, lighthearted way of describing something moving much slower than expected, without genuine anger behind it. You could say, the kitchen was running on island time tonight. Our food took forever. Repeat, the kitchen was running on island time tonight. Our food took forever. You might continue the small talk by saying, well, at least we're in good company. Misery loves company. In good company means you're not alone in an unpleasant situation, which somehow makes it feel a little more bearable. You could say, the flight was delayed for everyone, so at least we were in good company. Repeat, the flight was delayed for everyone, so at least we were in good company. Let's move now into the DMV specifically. Renewing a license, a situation completely untouched in our earlier lessons. Imagine you arrive and a basic sentence is, I need to renew my license. A better version is, hi, I'm here to get my license renewed. Do you know if I need an appointment, or can I just wait my turn? The clerk might say, you can just wait your turn, but heads up, it's been a madhouse in here all morning. A madhouse is an informal way to describe an extremely chaotic, crowded, or hectic place. You could say, the The kitchen turns into a madhouse right before dinner service. Repeat. The kitchen turns into a madhouse right before dinner service. Suppose you're missing a required document. The clerk says, "I'm afraid you'll need to come back with your proof of residency. Paperwork rules here are pretty strict." You could respond, "Understood. Is there a list somewhere of everything I need, so I don't come back empty-handed again?" Empty-handed means arriving without what you needed to bring or without achieving your goal. You could say, "I went to 3 stores and came home empty-handed." Repeat. I went to 3 stores and came home empty-handed. Now, let's pause for our first quick recall moment. I'm going to give you a few short prompts, and I want you to answer using phrases from just the last few minutes. Ready? Imagine a friend asks you to describe waiting for a table at a busy restaurant last weekend. Try answering using the phrase, "running on island time." Pause and try it. Here's one version. "Honestly, the place was running on island time. We waited almost an hour." Now, imagine someone asks how your week has been. Try using sort out. Here's a version. "It's been fine. I've just had a few things to sort out with my bank." Last one. Imagine you tried a new coffee shop and it was unexpectedly chaotic inside. Describe it using madhouse. Here's a version. "It was a total madhouse in there, but the coffee was worth it." Notice how these phrases already feel a little more familiar the second time you use them. That familiarity is exactly what we're building all through this lesson. Before we move on, let's do something a little different for a minute, a spot the mistake round. I'm going to say a sentence with one small common error hiding in it, and I want you to pause and try to catch it before I explain. Here's the first one. She is agree with the plan. Pause it now if you want a real shot at catching it. Here's the fix. It should be, she agrees with the plan. Agree is a verb on its own in English. It never needs is in front of it. That's a direct translation habit from languages that build this differently, and it's one of the most common slips even at a high level. Let's try one more. I have visited my grandmother last weekend. Pause again. The fix is, I visited my grandmother last weekend, because last weekend is a finished, specific point in the past, so the simple past does the job, not the present perfect. One last one, a little trickier. I'm living here since 3 years. Pause and think it through. The fix is, I've been living here for 3 years. Since pairs with a specific starting point, like since 2021, while for pairs with a duration, like for 3 years. And this one gets mixed up constantly, so it's worth locking in. Nicely done if you caught even one of those. That kind of active spotting builds a sharper ear than passive listening ever will. And we'll come back to this format later in the lesson too. Now, let's move into health-related situations, starting with a doctor's follow-up visit. A different angle from anything we've covered before. Imagine you're checking in and the receptionist asks how you're doing. A basic sentence is, "I'm okay." A more natural version is, "Not too bad, just here to have this shoulder looked at again." Have something looked at is an extremely common and useful structure. You could say, "I want to have the brakes looked at before the road trip." Repeat, "I want to have the brakes looked at before the road trip." Or, "Could someone have a look at this rash for me?" Repeat, "Could someone have a look at this rash for me?" The doctor examines you and says, Everything's healing up nicely. I don't see any red flags. Red flags, in this context, means warning signs of a serious problem. You could say, his resume looked great. No red flags at all. Repeat, his resume looked great. No red flags at all. You could respond, that's reassuring to hear. Should I still be careful with it? Or can I go back to normal activity? The doctor might say, ease back into it gradually. Don't jump straight back into anything intense. Now, let's move to the pharmacy, a completely fresh angle from what we've done before. Imagine you're picking up a prescription and the pharmacist mentions a possible interaction. A basic response is, okay. A stronger version is, got it. Is that something I need to actively avoid, or just something to be mindful of? Be mindful of means pay careful attention to something without necessarily being alarmed. You could say, just be mindful of the deadline. It's coming up fast. Repeat, just be mindful of the deadline. It's coming up fast. The pharmacist might say, just steer clear of grapefruit juice while you're taking this one. Steer clear of means deliberately avoid something. You could say, I try to steer clear of anything too spicy before a flight. Repeat, I try to steer clear of anything too spicy before a flight. You could respond, noted, I'll steer clear of it. Thanks for the heads up on that one. Let's move into the dentist now, something we've never covered. Imagine you're checking in for a routine cleaning, and the hygienist asks if anything's been bothering you. A basic response is, no, it's fine. A more developed version is, nothing major, but I have noticed some sensitivity when I drink anything cold. Sensitivity, in a medical or dental sense, refers to a heightened or uncomfortable reaction. You could say, I've had some sensitivity in my eyes since I switched contact lenses. Repeat, I've had some sensitivity in my eyes since I switched contact lenses. After the cleaning, the dentist might say, everything looks solid. Just keep flossing consistently and you'll be in good shape. You could respond, will do. I've actually been better about that lately. It's finally starting to become a habit rather than a chore. Now let's visit the vet, but with a different angle than anything we've discussed before. Imagine your cat has suddenly stopped eating as much as usual. You explain to the vet, a basic sentence is, my cat isn't eating well. A stronger version is, my cat's appetite has really dropped off over the past few days, and I wanted to get ahead of it before it became a bigger issue. Drop off in this context means decrease noticeably. You could say, attendance at the gym always drops off in December. Repeat, attendance at the gym always drops off in December. Get ahead of something means address a problem early before it becomes worse. You could say, I want to get ahead of this cold before it turns into something worse. Repeat, I want to get ahead of this cold before it turns into something worse. The vet examines your cat and says, blood work all looks clear. This could just be a passing thing, but let's schedule a follow-up in 2 weeks to be thorough. You could respond, that sounds sensible. I'd rather be thorough than assume it's nothing. Thorough means careful and complete, covering every detail. You could say, she's incredibly thorough with her work. Nothing ever slips through. Repeat, she's incredibly thorough with her work. Nothing ever slips through. Let's stay with animals for just one more moment before we move on. Imagine the vet also mentions that your cat will need a follow-up visit and asks if mornings or afternoons work better for you. A basic response is, morning is fine. A more natural version is, Mornings tend to work best for me. I'm usually free before things get hectic at work. Hectic describes something busy, rushed, and slightly chaotic. You could say, my schedule gets hectic toward the end of the month. Repeat. My schedule gets hectic toward the end of the month. Now let's shift gears completely and head into the world of home repairs, something this channel has never covered before. Imagine you notice a small leak under your kitchen sink and you're calling a plumber for the first time. A basic sentence is, there is a problem with my sink. A stronger, more natural version is, I've got a leak under my kitchen sink that's slowly gotten worse over the past few days. Could someone come take a look? Take a look is one of the most common everyday phrases in English. It simply means to examine something. You could say, could you take a look at this email before I send it? Repeat. Could you take a look at this email before I send it? The plumber might respond, sure thing. Does it look like it's actively dripping or just damp under there? You could answer, it's actively dripping. I've had to put a bucket under it just to be safe. Just to be safe is a phrase we use to explain a precaution taken to avoid a bigger problem. You could say, I brought my umbrella just to be safe. Repeat. I brought my umbrella just to be safe. Suppose the plumber arrives and after inspecting says, good news is it's a simple fix, just a loose connection. You could respond, oh, that's a relief. I was half expecting you to tell me the whole pipe needed replacing. Half expecting describes a mild anticipation of something, often something negative, without being fully certain. You could say, I was half expecting the meeting to get canceled with all this rain. Repeat. I was half expecting the meeting to get canceled with all this rain. Let's bring back Mr. Alvarez now, your neighbor. Imagine he knocks on your door because he noticed some water pooling near the shared fence between your yards. A basic sentence would be, there is water outside. A more natural, neighborly version is, hey, I don't mean to bother you, but I noticed some water pooling out by the fence. Just wanted to give you a heads up in case it's coming from your side. Give someone a heads up means to warn or inform them in advance, usually about something minor. You could say, just giving you a heads up, the elevator's out of service today. Repeat. Just giving you a heads up, the elevator's out of service today. You could respond, thanks for the heads up. I'll take a look and see what's going on. Appreciate you letting me know. Mr. Alvarez might add, no worries at all. Better safe than sorry, right? Notice that phrase returning from earlier in the lesson. This is exactly the kind of natural repetition that helps things stick. Now, let's move into dealing with a landlord, a topic many of you have asked us to cover. Imagine your heating has stopped working properly and you need to notify your landlord. A basic sentence is, my heating is broken. A more assertive, polished version is, hi, I wanted to flag that the heating hasn't been working properly for the past 2 days. Could someone take a look as soon as possible? Flag something means to point it out formally so someone is aware and can act on it. You could say, I just wanted to flag a possible issue with the budget before the meeting. Repeat. I just wanted to flag a possible issue with the budget before the meeting. The landlord might respond, thanks for letting me know. I'll get someone out there by Thursday at the latest. You could reply, that works. In the meantime, is there anything you'd recommend to help take the edge off the cold? Take the edge off means to reduce the intensity of something uncomfortable. You could say, a cup of tea always takes the edge off a stressful day. Repeat. A cup of tea always takes the edge off a stressful day. Let's pause for our second quick recall moment. Try answering these using phrases from just the last few minutes. Imagine a coworker asks why you look tired. Answer using hectic. Here's an option. It's just been a hectic week, that's all. Now imagine a friend asks why you brought a jacket to an indoor event. Answer using just to be safe. Here's an option. I brought it just to be safe. Some places crank up the AC. Last one. Imagine your boss asks if there's anything they should know before a client call. Answer using flag. Here's an option. Yes, actually, I wanted to flag one small concern before we go in. Let's move now into moving day and roommates, completely new territory for this channel. Imagine you and a new roommate are splitting up chores for the first time. A basic sentence is, you can clean the kitchen. A more natural, collaborative version is, what if we split things up? I'll take care of the kitchen if you handle the living room. Split something up means to divide a task or responsibility. You could say, let's split up the presentation. You take the intro and I'll take the data. Repeat. Let's split up the presentation. You take the intro and I'll take the data. Your roommate might respond, sounds fair to me. I'll try to stay on top of the living room, but bear with me the first week. I'm still settling in. Stay on top of something means to keep up with a responsibility consistently. You could say, it's hard to stay on top of laundry when you're this busy. Repeat. It's hard to stay on top of laundry when you're this busy. Bear with me is a polite way of asking for patience. You could say, bear with me, I'm still learning the new system. Repeat. Bear with me, I'm still learning the new system. Now, let's bring in Jordan, your coworker, for a stretch of workplace scenarios, starting with a job interview. Imagine Jordan is nervous about an upcoming interview and asks for advice on how to answer a tough question about a gap in their resume. A basic sentence is, I did not work for 6 months. A stronger version Jordan could use is, I took some time off to care for a family member, but I used that time to stay sharp by taking a few online courses. Stay sharp means to keep your skills or mind active. You could say, I read every day just to stay sharp during the break. Repeat. I read every day just to stay sharp during the break. Imagine the interviewer responds. That's a great way to look at it. It shows initiative. Jordan could reply, thank you. I really tried to make the most of that time rather than just letting it pass. Make the most of something means to use an opportunity as fully and positively as possible. You could say, we only had one free day in the city, so we made the most of it. Repeat. We only had one free day in the city, so we made the most of it. Now pause the video for a moment. Imagine the interviewer asks Jordan, where do you see yourself in 5 years? How would you answer using a phrase like, make the most of, or stay on top of? Try it out loud before continuing. Here is one possible answer. Honestly, I see myself growing within a company where I can make the most of my skills while staying on top of the latest trends in the field. Let's move to asking for a raise, another frequently requested topic. Imagine Jordan finally works up the courage to talk to their manager about a raise. A basic sentence is, I want more money. A far more professional, natural version is, I wanted to set aside some time to talk about my compensation, given everything I've taken on over the past year. Set aside time means to reserve time specifically for something important. You could say, let's set aside some time this week to go over the budget. Repeat. Let's set aside some time this week to go over the budget. The manager might respond, I appreciate you bringing this up directly. Let me look into what's possible and circle back to you by Friday. Circle back means to return to a topic or person later. You could say, let's circle back to this after lunch when we've all had time to think. Repeat. Let's circle back to this after lunch when we've all had time to think. Now, team meetings. Imagine Jordan is running a bit behind on a project and needs to update the team without sounding like they're making excuses. A basic sentence is, I am late on this. A better version is, I'm a little behind schedule on this one, but I've got a clear plan to catch up by the end of the week. Behind schedule simply means later than planned. You could say, we're behind schedule, but nothing we can't recover from. Repeat. We're behind schedule, but nothing we can't recover from. Catch up means to reach the expected point after falling behind. You could say, I need to catch up on emails after my vacation. Repeat. I need to catch up on emails after my vacation. A teammate might respond supportively. No worries. Thanks for being upfront about it. Let us know if you need an extra pair of hands. An extra pair of hands is an informal way of offering help. You could say, if you need an extra pair of hands moving this weekend, just say so. Repeat. If you need an extra pair of hands moving this weekend, just say so. Let's do our third quick recall moment before continuing. Imagine someone asks how your project is going. Answer using behind schedule and catch up. Here's an option. We're a bit behind schedule, but I've got a plan to catch up by Friday. Now, imagine a friend offers to help you paint your apartment. Respond using an extra pair of hands. Here's an option. Honestly, an extra pair of hands would be amazing right now. Thank you. Let's move into a performance review. Imagine Jordan's manager brings up an area for improvement gently. A basic sentence is, you need to improve. A more natural, softened version is, one thing I'd love to see more of going forward is a bit more communication when priorities shift. Going forward means from this point onward. You could say, going forward, let's check in every Monday morning. Repeat. Going forward, let's check in every Monday morning. Jordan could respond maturely. That's fair feedback. I'll definitely work on flagging changes earlier next time. Fair feedback acknowledges that criticism is reasonable and constructive. You could say, that's fair feedback. I hadn't thought about it that way. Repeat. That's fair feedback. I hadn't thought about it that way. Now, a first week at a new job. Imagine Jordan starts a new position, and the new coworker offers to show them around. A basic sentence is, thank you for showing me. A warmer, more natural version is, I really appreciate you taking the time to walk me through everything. It makes settling in so much easier. Walk someone through something means to explain or guide them step by step. You could say, could you walk me through how this software works? Repeat. Could you walk me through how this software works? The coworker might respond, of course. We all remember what it's like being the new person. Just holler if you need anything. Holler is a very informal, friendly way of saying call out or ask. You could say, "Holler if you need a hand with those boxes." Repeat, "Holler if you need a hand with those boxes." We're just about at the halfway mark, so let's put a quick recap card on screen with the phrases we've covered so far. Sort out, better safe than sorry, red flags, be mindful of, get ahead of, flag, stay on top of, make the most of, circle back, take your time, and a few more. Take a second to glance at it, and if any of them already feel a little fuzzy, that's completely normal. That's exactly what the rest of this lesson is going to keep reinforcing. Now, let's try something different for the next couple of minutes. A listening-only stretch. No pausing, no breakdowns in the middle, just two people talking naturally, the way you'd actually hear it in real life. Don't worry about catching every single word. Just follow the overall shape of the conversation. We'll unpack anything useful right after. Here it goes. "Hey, sorry I'm late. Traffic was a nightmare." "No worries at all. I just got here myself. Did you end up hearing back about the apartment?" "Not yet. They said it'd be a few more days. I'm trying not to get my hopes up too much." That's probably smart, but for what it's worth, it sounded really promising when you described it. I hope so. Fingers crossed. Anyway, how'd the presentation go? Honestly, better than expected. I was dreading it all week, but it ended up going pretty smoothly. See, you always do this to yourself. You worry for nothing. Okay, that's fair. Guilty as charged. That's the kind of pace and rhythm real native conversation actually moves at. Quick, overlapping, casual. From that short exchange alone, there are a few useful bits worth pulling out. Get your hopes up means to allow yourself to feel excited or optimistic about something that isn't certain yet. You could say, "I don't want to get my hopes up, but this interview felt really good." Repeat, "I don't want to get my hopes up, but this interview felt really good." And guilty as charged is a playful way of admitting someone's accusation about you is true. You could say, "Guilty as charged, I really did eat the last slice." Repeat, "Guilty as charged, I really did eat the last slice." Let's shift to a networking event. Imagine you're at an industry mixer and trying to start a conversation with a stranger near the snack table. A basic sentence is, "Hello, what is your job?" A smoother, natural opener is, "Hey, I don't think we've met yet. What brings you to this event?" "What brings you here" is a classic, friendly way to start a conversation and learn someone's purpose or interest. You could say, "What brings you to this side of town?" Repeat, "What brings you to this side of town?" The stranger might respond, "I'm actually just getting started in the industry, trying to make some connections." You could continue, "That's exciting. The early days are always the most interesting. Feel free to reach out if you ever want to grab coffee and swap notes." Swap notes means to exchange information, ideas, or experiences. You could say, "We should swap notes on our travel plans sometime." Repeat, "We should swap notes on our travel plans sometime." Now, freelance client work, an area many of our viewers specifically requested. Imagine a client is asking you to make several unpaid revisions to a project that was already marked complete. A basic sentence is, "That is more work. You must pay." A firmer but professional version is, "Happy to help. Just to flag, this falls outside our original scope, so I'll send over a quick estimate for the additional work." Fall outside the scope means something goes beyond what was originally agreed upon. You could say, "Unfortunately, that request falls outside the scope of our contract." Repeat, "Unfortunately, that request falls outside the scope of our contract." The client might respond, Ah, I didn't realize. Go ahead and send that over. You could reply, no problem at all. I'll get that estimate to you by end of day. By end of day is an extremely common professional phrase meaning before the working day finishes. You could say, I'll send the report over by end of day. Repeat, I'll send the report over by end of day. Let's pause for a fourth quick recall moment before we continue into more everyday scenarios. Imagine a friend asks if you can help them with an extra task that wasn't originally planned. Respond using falls outside the scope in a playful, non-work way. Here's an option. Ha, that kind of falls outside the scope of what we agreed on, but sure, I'll help. Now, imagine someone asks when you'll finish a task. Answer using by end of day. Here's an option. I should have it wrapped up by end of day. We've covered a lot of professional ground, so let's bring things back to everyday life with a trip to the hair salon. Imagine you're sitting in the chair and the stylist asks how much you'd like taken off. A basic sentence is, not too much. A more descriptive, natural version is, just a trim, really. I want to keep the length but clean up the ends. A trim refers to a small cut, just enough to tidy up. You could say, my hair just needs a trim before the wedding. Repeat, my hair just needs a trim before the wedding. The stylist might respond, got it, we'll keep it subtle, just enough to freshen things up. Freshen up means to make something look or feel newer and cleaner. You could say, I want to freshen up my resume before I start applying. Repeat, I want to freshen up my resume before I start applying. Now, buying a car, a big life moment many learners eventually face in English. Imagine you're talking to a salesperson and trying to avoid feeling pressured into a decision. A basic sentence is, I need to think. A calmer, more natural version is, I don't want to rush into anything. I'd like to sleep on it and get back to you tomorrow. Sleep on it means to wait until the next day before making a decision, allowing time to think. You could say, let's sleep on it and decide in the morning. Repeat, let's sleep on it and decide in the morning. The salesperson might respond, totally understand. Take your time. This offer will still be here tomorrow. Take your time is a reassuring phrase giving someone permission to not feel rushed. You could say, take your time. There's no pressure at all. Repeat, take your time. There's no pressure at all. Let's move to house hunting. Imagine you're touring an apartment with a realtor and trying to express mild disappointment politely. A basic sentence is, I do not like this. A more diplomatic, natural version is, it's nice, but it's not quite what we had in mind. The kitchen feels a little cramped for us. Not quite what we had in mind is a soft, polite way of expressing that something doesn't match expectations. You could say, the hotel room was nice, but not quite what we had in mind. Repeat, the hotel room was nice, but not quite what we had in mind. The realtor might respond, no worries at all. I've got a couple more listings that might be a better fit. Let's check those out. A better fit describes something more suitable or appropriate. You could say, that job sounds like a better fit for your skills. Repeat, that job sounds like a better fit for your skills. Now, insurance claims, a genuinely useful and often stressful topic. Imagine you're calling to file a claim after a minor car accident. A basic sentence is, I had an accident. A calmer, clearer version is, I wanted to file a claim. I was in a minor fender bender yesterday and wanted to get the process started. A fender bender is an informal term for a small, usually low-damage car accident. You could say, traffic was backed up because of a fender bender on the highway. Repeat, Traffic was backed up because of a fender bender on the highway. The representative might respond, I'm sorry to hear that. Let's get this sorted out for you right away. Can you walk me through what happened? You could reply, of course. So basically, the other driver rear-ended me at a red light. Rear-end someone means to hit the back of another vehicle. You could say, someone rear-ended me while I was stopped at the light. Repeat. Someone rear-ended me while I was stopped at the light. Let's do a fifth quick recall moment. Imagine a friend asks about a minor accident you heard about nearby. Describe it using fender bender. Here's an option. Nothing serious, just a small fender bender near the intersection. Now, imagine someone shows you a new apartment listing that's almost right, but not perfect. Respond using, not quite what we had in mind. Here's an option. It's lovely, but it's not quite what we had in mind. Maybe a bit too far from downtown. Let's head to the gym now. Imagine you're asking someone if a machine is currently in use. A basic sentence is this free? A more natural, casual version is, hey, are you still using this? Or is it free? Notice how naturally English speakers add these small softeners rather than blunt questions. The person might respond, go right ahead, I'm actually just finishing up. Go right ahead is a warm way of giving permission. You could say, go right ahead, take whichever seat you like. Repeat. Go right ahead, take whichever seat you like. Let's move to grocery shopping. Imagine you can't find an item and ask an employee for help. A basic sentence is, where is the item? A more natural version is, excuse me, I've been looking everywhere for the almond milk. Would you happen to know which aisle it's in? Would you happen to know is a very polite, natural way of asking someone for information. You could say, would you happen to know if this store is open on Sundays? Repeat. Would you happen to know if this store is open on Sundays? The employee might respond, actually, we just moved that section. It's now on aisle 5. Sorry for the mix-up. A mix-up refers to a small mistake or confusion. You could say, there was a mix-up with our reservation, but they fixed it quickly. Repeat. There was a mix-up with our reservation, but they fixed it quickly. Now, wedding planning. Imagine Maya is back, this time stressed about coordinating vendors for her sister's wedding. A basic sentence is, there is a lot to do. A more natural, expressive version is, honestly, there are so many moving parts. I feel like I'm juggling 10 things at once. Moving parts describes the many different elements involved in a complicated situation. You could say, there are a lot of moving parts to this project, so let's stay organized. Repeat. There are a lot of moving parts to this project, so let's stay organized. A friend might respond supportively. You're handling it so well, though. Just take it one step at a time. One step at a time encourages someone to focus on a single task rather than being overwhelmed by everything at once. You could say, don't worry about the whole move yet. Just take it one step at a time. Repeat. Don't worry about the whole move yet. Just take it one step at a time. Let's move to family gatherings. Imagine a relative keeps asking overly personal questions at a holiday dinner, and you want to politely change the subject. A basic sentence is, I do not want to talk about that. A more graceful, natural version is, let's not get into that today. Tell me more about your trip instead. Get into something, in this context, means to start discussing a topic in depth. You could say, we don't need to get into all the details right now. Repeat. We don't need to get into all the details right now. Now, texting and video calls, a very modern and requested topic. Imagine a video call keeps freezing and you need to explain the issue naturally. A basic sentence is, "The call is bad." A more natural version is, "Sorry, you're cutting out a little on my end. Can you hear me okay?" Cut out describes a call or audio breaking up or becoming unclear. You could say, "You cut out for a second. Could you repeat that last part?" Repeat. "You cut out for a second. Could you repeat that last part?" Let's do our sixth and final quick recall moment for this section. Imagine a friend asks how wedding planning is going for someone you know. Answer using moving parts and one step at a time. Here's an option. It's a lot, so many moving parts, but she's taking it one step at a time. Now imagine you're on a call and someone's voice keeps breaking up. Respond using cutting out. Here's an option. "Hey, you're cutting out again. Mind repeating that?" Let's close out with making new friends as an adult and hobby groups, two closely connected topics many learners specifically asked for. Imagine you just joined a local hiking group and you're introducing yourself for the first time. A basic sentence is, "I am new here." A warmer, more natural version is, "Hey everyone, I'm new to the group. Just moved to the area and figured this would be a great way to meet people and get outside more." A great way to is an extremely useful structure for describing the purpose or benefit of an activity. You could say, "Cooking together is a great way to bond as a family." Repeat. Cooking together is a great way to bond as a family. Someone in the group might respond warmly, "Welcome, we're glad to have you. You'll fit right in." Fit right in means to feel comfortable and belong naturally within a group. You could say, "She fit right in with her new coworkers on the very first day." Repeat. She fit right in with her new coworkers on the very first day. That brings us to the end of today's masterclass. Let's do one final full recall round together, pulling several phrases from across the entire lesson into one connected story, exactly the way you'd naturally combine them in real conversation. Imagine this. You had a hectic week. You had to sort out a mix-up with your bank. Then you got some bad news from the vet about your cat, but thankfully it turned out to be nothing serious. You had to flag an issue with your landlord about the heating, and by the end of the week, you were ready to just take it one step at a time and relax. Notice how naturally all of those phrases now sit together in a single flowing story. That is exactly the kind of fluency this series is building toward. Not memorizing isolated words, but weaving them together the way real speakers actually do. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If you enjoyed this masterclass, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new lesson. Practice these phrases out loud today, even just a few of them, and I promise you'll start noticing them the next time you watch a show, read an article, or have a real conversation in English. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now. Before we wrap up completely, let's cover a few more situations many of you specifically requested in the comments, starting with a hotel check-in problem, since travel English comes up constantly in real life. Imagine you arrive at a hotel late at night and the front desk tells you there's no record of your reservation. A basic sentence is, there is a mistake. A calmer, more effective version is, I'm sorry to hear that. I definitely booked this a few weeks ago. Would you mind double-checking under a different spelling of my name? Double-check means to verify something a second time to be sure it's correct. You could say, let me double-check the address before we send this package. Repeat. Let me double-check the address before we send this package. The receptionist might respond, You're right, I found it. It was just filed under a slightly different name. Sorry for the confusion. You could reply, No harm done. These things happen. I'm just glad it got sorted out. No harm done is a generous, forgiving phrase used to reassure someone that a small mistake didn't cause real damage. You could say, No harm done. We still made it in time. Repeat. No harm done. We still made it in time. Suppose instead the hotel genuinely has no rooms available. A basic sentence is, What do I do now? A more composed version is, Okay, I understand things happen, but I do need somewhere to stay tonight. Is there anything you can do to help me out? Help someone out means to assist someone, often in a moment of difficulty. You could say, Could you help me out with this heavy suitcase? Repeat. Could you help me out with this heavy suitcase? The receptionist might respond, I completely understand. Let me see what I can arrange. Worst case, I can get you set up at a partner hotel just down the street at no extra cost to you. Worst case is used to describe the least favorable possible outcome. You could say, Worst case, we just reschedule for next weekend. Repeat. Worst case, we just reschedule for next weekend. Now let's expand into airport and travel scenarios more broadly, since so many of you asked for this specifically. Imagine your flight has just been delayed and you're trying to figure out your connecting flight. A basic sentence is, My flight is late. A more useful, natural version is, My flight just got delayed. Do you know if that's going to affect my connection in Chicago? Affect simply means to have an impact on something. You could say, The weather might affect our plans for tomorrow. Repeat. The weather might affect our plans for tomorrow. The gate agent might respond, Let me check that for you. It looks tight, but you should still be able to make it if you head straight there. Make it, in this context, means to arrive somewhere successfully in time. You could say, We're cutting it close, but I think we'll make it. Repeat. We're cutting it close, but I think we'll make it. Imagine instead your luggage doesn't arrive at baggage claim. A basic sentence is, My bag is lost. A more effective version is, I don't see my luggage anywhere, and everyone else from my flight has already picked theirs up. Could you help me track it down? Track something down means to search for and eventually find something. You could say, It took me a week to track down the right part for the washing machine. Repeat. It took me a week to track down the right part for the washing machine. The airline representative might respond, I'm really sorry about that. Let's file a report right now, and we'll have it delivered to your address as soon as it turns up. Turn up, in this context, means to appear or be found, often unexpectedly. You could say, My keys finally turned up in my coat pocket. Repeat. My keys finally turned up in my coat pocket. Let's do a quick recall moment here. Imagine a friend asks about a mix-up with your flight reservation. Answer using double check and sort it out. Here's an option. There was a mix-up, but I asked them to double-check, and it got sorted out pretty quickly. Now imagine someone asks if you'll arrive on time to an event given traffic. Answer using make it and cutting it close. Here's an option. We should make it, but it's going to be cutting it close. Let's move into a car breakdown on the side of the road, a very practical scenario. Imagine your car suddenly stalls on the highway and you're calling roadside assistance. A basic sentence is, "My car does not work." A clearer, more useful version is, "My car just stalled out on the highway. I've pulled over onto the shoulder. Could you send someone out?" Stall out describes an engine suddenly stopping unexpectedly. You could say, "The car stalled out right at the intersection. It was a little scary." Repeat. The car stalled out right at the intersection. It was a little scary. The dispatcher might respond, "Sit tight. We've got someone about 20 minutes out. Make sure your hazards are on." Sit tight means to wait patiently without doing anything. You could say, "Sit tight. I'll be there in 5 minutes." Repeat. Sit tight. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Let's bring Maya back one more time for a restaurant scenario involving a reservation mishap. Imagine Maya arrives at a restaurant and there's no table ready despite a confirmed reservation. A basic sentence is, "You lost my reservation." A more graceful, natural version is, "I had a reservation for 7. Under Maya, is there any chance it just got overlooked?" Overlooked means missed or not noticed, usually by accident. You could say, "I think my email got overlooked in all the messages from today." Repeat. "I think my email got overlooked in all the messages from today." The host might respond, "I'm so sorry about that. Let me see what I can do. Can I get you a table by the window in the meantime?" In the meantime means during the period while something else is happening or being resolved. You could say, "The part is on order, but in the meantime, here's a loaner car." Repeat. "The part is on order, but in the meantime, here's a loaner car." Now, imagine the food finally arrives, but an order is wrong. A basic sentence is, "This is wrong." A more polite, natural version is, "I think there might have been a small mix-up. I actually ordered the grilled chicken instead of the fried." The server might respond, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me get that fixed for you right away. And we'll take that off your bill for the trouble." Take something off the bill means to reduce the total cost as compensation. You could say, "They took the drinks off the bill since we waited so long." Repeat. "They took the drinks off the bill since we waited so long." Let's move to splitting a bill among friends, something almost everyone experiences. Imagine you're at dinner with a group and trying to figure out the fairest way to split the check. A basic sentence is, "Everyone pays the same." A more natural, casual version is, "Should we just split it evenly? Or do you want to figure out who got what?" The group might respond, "Let's just split it evenly. It's easier than doing the math." Easier said than done is a related phrase you could use if the math actually turns out complicated. You could say, "Splitting this evenly sounds simple, but with the different drinks, it's easier said than done." Repeat. Splitting this evenly sounds simple, but with the different drinks, it's easier said than done. Let's pause for another quick recall moment. Imagine someone asks why your order at a restaurant took so long to fix. Answer using mix up and in the meantime. Here's an option. There was a small mix-up with our order, but in the meantime, they brought us some free appetizers. Now imagine a group of friends is deciding how to pay for a shared trip. Answer using split it evenly. Here's an option. Let's just split it evenly. That'll keep things simple. Now let's talk about a noisy neighbor situation, a scenario many renters deal with. Imagine you need to politely ask your upstairs neighbor to keep the noise down late at night. A basic sentence is, "You are too loud." A softer, more diplomatic version is, "Hey, I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but would you mind keeping it down a little after around 10? I've got an early start most mornings." Come across the wrong way means to be misunderstood or perceived negatively, despite good intentions. You could say, "I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but I noticed a small error in the report." Repeat, "I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but I noticed a small error in the report." The neighbor might respond, "Oh gosh, not at all. I had no idea it was carrying that much. I'll definitely be more mindful." Be mindful appeared earlier in this lesson too, describing careful attention. Notice how naturally it fits here in a completely different context. Let's move to a parking ticket dispute, something that catches almost everyone off guard eventually. Imagine you received a ticket you believe was issued unfairly, and you're calling to dispute it. A basic sentence is, "This ticket is wrong." A calmer, more persuasive version is, "I'd like to dispute this ticket. The sign marking the zone was actually covered by a tree branch at the time." Dispute something means to formally challenge or disagree with a decision. You could say, "You have the right to dispute the charge if you think it's inaccurate." Repeat, "You have the right to dispute the charge if you think it's inaccurate." The representative might respond, "I understand. Go ahead and submit a photo along with your dispute form, and we'll take it from there." Take it from there means to continue handling something once the first step has been completed. You could say, "Just get the form started and I'll take it from there." Repeat, "Just get the form started and I'll take it from there." Let's move into a subscription cancellation call, a very modern and common scenario. Imagine you're calling to cancel a streaming service you no longer use. A basic sentence is, "I want to cancel." A more natural version, especially if you want to see if they'll offer a discount instead, is, "I'm thinking about canceling my subscription. I just haven't been using it much lately. Is there anything you can do on your end?" On your end refers to something within someone else's control or responsibility. You could say, "Is there anything you can check on your end? The website isn't loading for me at all." Repeat, "Is there anything you can check on your end? The website isn't loading for me at all." The representative might respond, "I can actually offer you a discounted rate for the next few months if you'd like to stick around." Stick around is an informal way of saying to stay or remain. You could say, "We're planning to stick around this city for another year at least." Repeat, "We're planning to stick around this city for another year at least." Let's do a quick recall moment. Imagine a friend asks if you managed to get your streaming subscription canceled. Answer using stick around. Here's an option. "Actually, they offered me a discount, so I decided to stick around for a bit longer." Now imagine you're explaining that a website issue might not be your fault. Answer using on your end. Here's an option. "Could you check if the problem is on your end? It's not loading for me at all." Let's shift to a customer service complaint about a broken product. Imagine you received a package and the item inside arrived damaged. A basic sentence is, The product is broken. A clearer, more effective version is, I just opened the package and, unfortunately, the item arrived damaged. Would it be possible to get a replacement sent out? The representative might respond, I'm really sorry to hear that. I'll get a replacement shipped out to you right away. No charge, of course. Right away simply means immediately. You could say, I'll get back to you right away once I hear anything. Repeat. I'll get back to you right away once I hear anything. Let's bring Jordan back one final time for a promotion conversation. Imagine Jordan's manager calls them in to discuss a potential promotion. A basic sentence is, you are promoted. A more natural, professional version the manager might use is, we've been really impressed with the initiative you've shown this year, and we'd like to talk about moving you into a more senior role. Show initiative means to take independent action without being told to. You could say, she showed a lot of initiative by fixing the issue before anyone even noticed it. Repeat. She showed a lot of initiative by fixing the issue before anyone even noticed it. Jordan might respond, wow, thank you. That really means a lot. I'd love to hear more about what that would look like. Mean a lot expresses that something is emotionally significant or valued. You could say, your support this year has meant a lot to me. Repeat. Your support this year has meant a lot to me. Now, mentoring a junior colleague, a natural extension of that promotion. Imagine Jordan is now mentoring someone new and offering encouragement after a small mistake. A basic sentence is, it is okay, do not worry. A warmer, more natural version is, honestly, don't sweat it. Everyone messes up their first few weeks. The important thing is you caught it and fixed it quickly. Don't sweat it is a very common, relaxed way of telling someone not to worry. You could say, don't sweat it, we've all been there. Repeat. Don't sweat it, we've all been there. Let's do a quick recall moment. Imagine a coworker apologizes for a small error they made. Respond using, don't sweat it. Here's an option. Don't sweat it. Honestly, it happens to everyone. Now imagine you want to describe a colleague who solved a problem without being asked. Answer using, show initiative. Here's an option. She really showed initiative by handling it before anyone even asked. Let's return to Mr. Alvarez for one more neighborly scenario, borrowing tools. Imagine you knock on his door to ask if you can borrow a ladder for a small home project. A basic sentence is, can I have your ladder? A more natural, friendly version is, hey, this might be a random ask, but would you happen to have a ladder I could borrow for a bit? I'm just hanging a few pictures. A random ask is a casual way of acknowledging that a request might seem unusual or out of the blue. You could say, this is a random ask, but do you know anyone who does furniture repair? Repeat. This is a random ask, but do you know anyone who does furniture repair? Mr. Alvarez might respond, not random at all. Happy to lend it to you. Just bring it back whenever you're done. No rush. No rush reassures someone that there's no urgency involved. You could say, take as long as you need. No rush at all. Repeat. Take as long as you need. No rush at all. Now let's cover a library scenario. something simple but genuinely useful. Imagine you need to explain to a librarian that you lost a library book. A basic sentence is, I lost the book. A more natural, responsible version is, I have to admit, I misplaced one of the books I borrowed. What's the best way to handle that? Misplace something is a slightly gentler way of saying you lost something, often temporarily. You could say, I think I misplaced my glasses somewhere in the house. Repeat. I think I misplaced my glasses somewhere in the house. The librarian might respond, no worries, it happens more than you'd think. We can just charge a small replacement fee, or you're welcome to keep looking for it for a couple more weeks. Let's do a quick recall moment. Imagine you're explaining why you're a few minutes late returning something you borrowed. Answer using no rush as reassurance you received, and misplace to explain what happened. Here's an option. I actually misplaced it for a day, but thankfully they said there was no rush getting it back. Let's cover a coffee shop small talk scenario, something that happens constantly and rarely gets taught properly. Imagine you're waiting for your order and strike up a conversation with the person next to you about the weather. A basic sentence is, the weather is bad today. A more natural version is, can you believe this weather? It's been all over the place lately. All over the place describes something inconsistent, chaotic, or unpredictable. You could say, my schedule has been all over the place this month. Repeat, my schedule has been all over the place this month. The stranger might respond, tell me about it. I left the house without a jacket, and now I'm regretting it. Tell me about it is a very common, agreeing response, meaning you completely understand or relate. You could say, tell me about it. I've been dealing with the same thing all week. Repeat, tell me about it. I've been dealing with the same thing all week. Now, let's cover birthday party planning, bringing Maya back once more. Imagine Maya is trying to coordinate a surprise party and needs everyone to arrive early without giving anything away. A basic sentence is, come early, do not tell him. A more natural, careful version is, just a heads up, try to get there a little early, but play it cool. We don't want him catching on before the big moment. Play it cool means to act calm and normal so as not to reveal something. You could say, just play it cool when he walks in, act surprised later. Repeat, just play it cool when he walks in, act surprised later. Catch on means to realize or figure something out. You could say, I think she's starting to catch on to the surprise. Repeat, I think she's starting to catch on to the surprise. Let's do a quick recall moment. Imagine you're planning a surprise for a friend and need everyone to act naturally. Answer using play it cool and catch on. Here's an option. Just play it cool around her. We don't want her to catch on before Saturday. Let's move into holiday travel and family gatherings from a slightly different angle, discussing travel stress. Imagine you're explaining to a friend how chaotic your holiday travel plans turned out. A basic sentence is, the trip was difficult. A more vivid, natural version is, honestly, it was a whirlwind, 3 flights, 2 cancellations, and somehow we still made it in time for dinner. A whirlwind describes something fast-paced, chaotic, and overwhelming, often in a slightly exciting way. You could say, the whole week was a whirlwind. I barely had time to sit down. Repeat, the whole week was a whirlwind. I barely had time to sit down. Let's cover a pet sitting arrangement next. Imagine you're asking a friend to watch your dog while you're away and giving them instructions. A basic sentence is, take care of my dog. A more natural, detailed version is, "Thank you again for offering to watch him. Just a heads up, he's a creature of habit, so try to keep his walk times consistent if you can." A creature of habit describes someone or something that strongly prefers routine and consistency. You could say, "My dad is such a creature of habit. He orders the same thing every single time." Repeat, "My dad is such a creature of habit. He orders the same thing every single time." Your friend might respond, "Got it. Consistency it is. I'll treat him like my own while you're gone." Let's do a quick recall moment. Imagine someone asks about a relative who always does the same routine every visit. Answer using creature of habit. Here's an option. "Oh, he's such a creature of habit. He'll want the same seat at dinner every year." Let's move into a community garden scenario, a fresh, pleasant topic. Imagine you're new to a community garden and asking an experienced gardener for advice on a struggling plant. A basic sentence is, "My plant is bad." A more natural, specific version is, "I think I might be overwatering my tomatoes. The leaves have started turning a little yellow." Does that sound familiar? Sound familiar is used to ask if something matches a pattern someone else has experienced before. You could say, "Waking up exhausted every Monday. Does that sound familiar to anyone?" Repeat, "Waking up exhausted every Monday. Does that sound familiar to anyone?" The gardener might respond, "Oh, that sounds exactly like overwatering. Ease off a little and you should see it bounce back within a week or two." Bounce back means to recover or return to a normal, healthy state. You could say, "It took a few days, but the team really bounced back after that tough loss." Repeat, "It took a few days, but the team really bounced back after that tough loss." Let's do our final quick recall moment before we bring everything together. Imagine a friend describes a problem that's similar to something you've dealt with before. Respond using, "Sound familiar?" Here's an option. "That definitely sounds familiar. I went through the exact same thing last year." Now imagine someone asks how they're recovering after a rough week. Answer using, "Bounce back." Here's an option. "She's already starting to bounce back, which is great to see." Now, for our true grand finale, let's weave together phrases from this entire second half of the lesson into one flowing story, exactly the way a fluent speaker would naturally combine them without even thinking about it. Imagine this. Your flight got delayed, and you were half worried you wouldn't make it to the hotel in time. But thankfully, no harm done. Everything got sorted out. Once you landed, life got a little bit like a whirlwind. A noisy neighbor, a parking dispute you had to formally dispute, and a subscription you finally decided to cancel after deciding not to stick around for another year. Through all of it, your neighbor, Mr. Alvarez, was happy to help you out, lending you a ladder without a second thought. No rush at all. And by the end of it, just like everything else in life, you took it one step at a time, and eventually, things bounced back to normal. That brings today's masterclass to a close. We've now covered more than 40 completely fresh, real-life situations, from banking and the DMV all the way to birthday parties and community gardens, each one built around natural, upgraded English, the way real speakers actually talk. If any single phrase from today stuck with you, try using it today, in a text message, in a conversation, even just out loud to yourself in the mirror. That's how these things move from something you understand into something you truly own. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If you found this useful, please like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you catch every new masterclass the moment it goes live. I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye for now. Let's take a short break from scenarios for our second Spot the Mistake round. This time with slightly trickier sentences, since you've had more practice now. First one. I agree that we should postpone the trip. Pause and catch it if you can. The fix is, I agree that we should postpone the trip. Same slip as earlier, a good sign if you caught it faster this time. Next one. He explained me the whole situation. Pause it. The fix is, he explained the whole situation to me. Explain never takes a direct person as its object in English. It needs to, the same is true for describe and suggest, three verbs that trip up learners constantly. One final one. I'm looking forward to see you next week. Pause and think. The fix is, I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. Look forward to is followed by a noun or an ing form, never the plain infinitive, because that too is actually part of a preposition phrase, not part of a verb pattern. Great work if you're starting to catch these faster. That instinct is exactly what turns into real fluency over time. Let's add a few more situations before we close out completely, since there's still room to cover some topics many of you have been asking for. Let's start with a garage sale, a fun, low-stakes scenario that's genuinely full of useful negotiation language. Imagine someone is looking at an old lamp at your garage sale and asks if you'll go lower on the price. A basic sentence is, no, the price is the price. A more natural, flexible version is, I could probably come down a little. How does $5 sound instead of $8? Come down on a price means to lower the asking price. You could say, they wouldn't come down on the price at all, so we walked away. Repeat, they wouldn't come down on the price at all, so we walked away. The buyer might respond, that works for me, I'll take it. Let's move to a similar negotiation, this time at a used furniture listing online. Imagine someone messages you asking if the price is firm. A basic sentence is, yes, it's a fixed price. A more natural version is, it's pretty firm, but if you can pick it up today, I could knock off a little. Firm, in this context, means fixed and unlikely to change. You could say, the landlord was firm about the move-out date. Repeat, the landlord was firm about the move-out date. Knock off, in this context, means to subtract from a price. You could say, they knocked $10 off since I paid in cash. Repeat, they knocked $10 off since I paid in cash. Now, let's move to a car rental counter, a very practical travel scenario. Imagine you arrive to pick up a rental car, and there's an unexpected upsell attempt. A basic sentence is, I do not want that. A more polite, firm version is, I appreciate it, but I think I'll just stick with what I originally booked. Stick with something means to continue with a choice already made rather than switching. You could say, I'll just stick with the plan we already agreed on. Repeat, I'll just stick with the plan we already agreed on. The agent might respond, no problem at all. Just wanted to make sure you had the option. Let's get you on your way. Let's do a quick recall moment. Imagine a salesperson is trying to upgrade something you already decided on. Respond using stick with. Here's an option. Thanks, but I think I'll just stick with the original plan. Let's move into a warranty claim at an electronics store. Imagine a device you bought a few months ago stopped working, and you're bringing it back. A basic sentence is, this is broken, fix it. A more effective version is, this stopped turning on about a week ago. It's still under warranty, so I was hoping to get it looked at or replaced. Under warranty means still covered by a manufacturer's protection against defects. You could say, thankfully, the washing machine was still under warranty when it broke. Repeat. Thankfully, the washing machine was still under warranty when it broke. The employee might respond, let's see what we can do. If the repair takes more than a few days, we can usually swap it out for a new one instead. Swap something out means to exchange one item for another. You could say, they swapped out my broken headphones for a brand new pair. Repeat. They swapped out my broken headphones for a brand new pair. Let's cover a missed package delivery next, an extremely common modern annoyance. Imagine you come home to find a note saying your package couldn't be delivered. A basic sentence is, I did not get my package. A more natural version, when calling to sort it out, is, I got a note saying my delivery was missed. Is there any way to have it redelivered tomorrow instead? Redeliver means to attempt delivery again after a failed attempt. You could say, they agreed to redeliver it first thing tomorrow morning. Repeat. They agreed to redeliver it first thing tomorrow morning. The representative might respond, of course, I've got that scheduled for tomorrow between 9 and noon. Someone will need to be there to sign for it. Let's do a quick recall moment. Imagine you're explaining to a roommate why a package didn't arrive. Answer using redeliver. Here's an option. They're going to redeliver it tomorrow morning instead. Now, let's bring back Mr. Alvarez one final time for an elevator small talk moment. Something almost universally relatable. Imagine you're both waiting for a slow elevator in your building. A basic sentence is, the elevator is slow. A more natural, light version is, this thing is on its last legs. I swear it gets slower every week. On its last legs describes something old and close to breaking down completely. You could say, my laptop is on its last legs. I really need a new one. Repeat. My laptop is on its last legs. I really need a new one. Mr. Alvarez might laugh and respond, tell me about it. I've started taking the stairs just to save time. Notice, tell me about it, returning again from earlier, showing exactly how naturally these phrases resurface in real conversations. Let's move to a dog park scenario, a pleasant, casual setting. Imagine your dog is playing with another dog and you strike up a conversation with the owner. A basic sentence is, your dog is nice. A more natural conversational version is, they seem to be hitting it off. How old is yours? Hit it off means to immediately get along well with someone. In this case, two dogs. You could say, the two of them hit it off right away at the party. Repeat. The two of them hit it off right away at the party. The other owner might respond, they really are. Mine's about 2, still acts like a puppy most days. Let's do a quick recall moment. Imagine you're describing two people who instantly became close friends. Answer using hit it off. Here's an option. They hit it off immediately. It was like they'd known each other for years. Let's cover a yoga class scenario next. Imagine you're new to a studio and the instructor asks if you have any injuries to be aware of before class starts. A basic sentence is, my back hurts sometimes. A more natural, useful version is, nothing major, just a bit of tightness in my lower back now and then, so I'll probably modify a couple of the poses. Modify something means to adjust or change something slightly to suit your needs. You could say, feel free to modify any exercise that doesn't feel right for you. Repeat, feel free to modify any exercise that doesn't feel right for you. The instructor might respond, of course, listen to your body today. There's no need to push through anything uncomfortable. Push through something means to continue despite difficulty or discomfort. You could say, I pushed through the last mile even though I was exhausted. Repeat. I pushed through the last mile even though I was exhausted. Let's move to a book club scenario. Imagine you're sharing your opinion on a book that most of the group loved, but you personally found slow. A basic sentence is, I did not like it. A more diplomatic, natural version is, I can see why everyone's drawn to it. It just didn't fully grab me the way I was hoping. Grab someone, in this context, means to capture someone's interest or attention. You could say, the movie had a great cast, but the story just didn't grab me. Repeat. The movie had a great cast, but the story just didn't grab me. A group member might respond, that's fair. It definitely starts slow, but I promise it picks up in the second half. Pick up, in this context, means to become more interesting, active, or intense. You could say, the concert was quiet at first, but it really picked up toward the end. Repeat. The concert was quiet at first, but it really picked up toward the end. Let's do one more quick recall moment before our true closing. Imagine someone asks why you stopped watching a show halfway through. Answer using grab me. Here's an option. Honestly, it just didn't grab me the way everyone said it would. Now, imagine someone asks if an event is worth attending even though it starts slowly. Answer using picks up. Here's an option. It starts a little slow, but it really picks up after the first hour. Let's close with a volunteering scenario, a warm note to end on. Imagine you're volunteering for the first time at a local shelter and asking the coordinator what's needed most. A basic sentence is, what should I do? A more natural, engaged version is, I'm happy to help wherever's most useful. Is there a task you're currently short-handed on? Short-handed means not having enough people to complete a task or job. You could say, we're a little short-handed today, so any help is appreciated. Repeat. We're a little short-handed today, so any help is appreciated. The coordinator might respond, actually, we could really use a hand sorting donations if you don't mind. We're a bit behind today. Notice behind returning again, naturally from our earlier workplace scenarios, just in a completely different setting. Let's add a handful more situations to round things out. Let's start with a dating app conversation moving into real life, something a lot of you asked about. Imagine you've been messaging someone for a week and want to suggest meeting in person without sounding too forward. A basic sentence is, let's meet. A more natural, easygoing version is, this has been fun. Want to grab a coffee sometime this week and keep the conversation going in person? Grab a coffee is a very casual, common way to suggest a low-pressure meetup. You could say, we should grab a coffee and catch up properly sometime. Repeat. We should grab a coffee and catch up properly sometime. The other person might respond, I'd like that. How does Thursday evening work for you? You could reply, Thursday works great. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to something expresses positive anticipation. You could say, I'm really looking forward to the weekend. Repeat, I'm really looking forward to the weekend. Now imagine the date itself is going well and there's a natural lull in conversation. A basic sentence is, we have nothing to say. A more natural version is, so, tell me, what's something you've been really into lately? Be into something means to have genuine interest or enthusiasm for something. You could say, I've been really into pottery lately. It's surprisingly relaxing. Repeat. I've been really into pottery lately. It's surprisingly relaxing. Let's do a quick recall moment. Imagine a friend asks how a first date went. Answer using hit it off from earlier in this lesson. Here's an option. We really hit it off, actually. We're already planning a second one. Let's move into an apartment inspection scenario, something many renters eventually face. Imagine your landlord is doing a routine walkthrough and points out a small scuff on the wall. A basic sentence is, "That is not my fault." A calmer, more diplomatic version is, "Oh, I hadn't even noticed that. I'm happy to touch it up with some paint before I move out." Touch something up means to make small repairs or improvements. You could say, "We just need to touch up the trim before the open house." Repeat. We just need to touch up the trim before the open house. The landlord might respond, "No worries, that's totally normal wear and tear. Nothing to stress about." Wear and tear describes the gradual damage that naturally happens from everyday use. You could say, "The couch shows some wear and tear, but it's still comfortable." Repeat. The couch shows some wear and tear, but it's still comfortable. Let's cover a check-in with a friend who seems a little off lately, a genuinely useful, caring scenario. Imagine you've noticed a friend has been quieter than usual, and you want to gently ask if everything's okay. A basic sentence is, "What is wrong with you?" A much warmer, more natural version is, "Hey, you've seemed a little quiet lately. Everything okay with you?" No pressure to talk about it, just wanted to check in. Check in with someone means to reach out to see how they're doing. You could say, "I just wanted to check in and see how you're holding up." Repeat. I just wanted to check in and see how you're holding up. Your friend might respond, "Thanks for noticing. Honestly, it's just been a lot lately, but I appreciate you asking." Be a lot is a very common, slightly vague way of saying a situation feels overwhelming without needing to list every specific reason why. You could say, "Planning the wedding on top of work has just been a lot." Repeat. Planning the wedding on top of work has just been a lot. It's a phrase you'll hear constantly in real conversation, precisely because it doesn't require explaining every detail. Sometimes people just want the feeling acknowledged, not analyzed. Let's do a quick recall moment. Imagine someone thanks you for reaching out during a hard week. Respond warmly using check in. Here's an option. Of course, I just wanted to check in. That's what friends are for. Let's move into a parent-teacher style conference, useful for anyone with kids or younger siblings. Imagine a teacher is giving mostly positive feedback with one small area to work on. A basic sentence is, "Your child is not good at math." A softer, more constructive version the teacher might use is, "Overall, she's doing wonderfully. The one area I'd love to see her build more confidence in is math, especially word problems." Build confidence means to gradually develop a stronger sense of self-assurance in something. You could say, "Practicing in front of a mirror really helped him build confidence before the interview." Repeat. Practicing in front of a mirror really helped him build confidence before the interview. You might respond as the parent, "That's good to know. Is there anything we can do at home to help reinforce that?" Reinforce something means to strengthen or support something further. You could say, "We try to reinforce good habits at home too." Repeat. We try to reinforce good habits at home too. Let's cover a gym class booking situation, since fitness scheduling comes up constantly. Imagine a class you wanted to book is completely full. A basic sentence is, the class is full. That is bad. A more useful, natural version is, that's a bummer. Is there a wait list I could get added to in case someone drops out? A bummer is a very common, casual way to describe mild disappointment. You could say, it's a bummer the concert got canceled. Repeat, it's a bummer the concert got canceled. The front desk staff might respond, absolutely, I'll add you now. Spots usually open up the night before, so keep an eye on your email. Keep an eye on something means to watch or monitor it closely. You could say, keep an eye on the oven. It tends to burn quickly. Repeat, keep an eye on the oven. It tends to burn quickly. Let's do a quick recall moment. Imagine a friend tells you their flight got canceled. Respond sympathetically using a bummer. Here's an option. Oh, that's such a bummer. What are you going to do instead? Let's close with one more scenario. Weather small talk while waiting somewhere unexpected, like a mechanic's waiting room. Imagine you're chatting casually with another customer while your cars are both being serviced. A basic sentence is, we are both waiting. A more natural version is, looks like we're both stuck here for a while. At least the coffee's decent. Stuck somewhere means unable to leave a place, often unwillingly. You could say, we got stuck at the airport for 6 extra hours. Repeat, we got stuck at the airport for 6 extra hours. The other customer might respond, tell me about it, but honestly, it's kind of nice to just sit for a minute with no phone calls. Notice tell me about it appearing once again, naturally, the way real recurring phrases actually work their way through everyday conversation. Before we get to our true closing, let's squeeze in 2 more quick situations, since a couple of you specifically asked about them in the comments. First, a hobby group deep dive, this time a pottery class rather than hiking. Imagine you're a few weeks into a beginner pottery class and your piece keeps collapsing on the wheel. A basic sentence is, it is not working. A more natural, self-aware version is, I think I'm just overworking the clay. It keeps caving in on me every single time. Overwork something means to handle or work on something too much to the point of damaging it. You could say, don't overwork the dough or the bread will turn out tough. Repeat, don't overwork the dough or the bread will turn out tough. The instructor might respond, that's such a common mistake starting out. Try easing off the pressure a bit. Less is more with the clay at this stage. Less is more is a well-known expression meaning simplicity often works better than excess. You could say, when it comes to seasoning, less is more. You can always add more later. Repeat, when it comes to seasoning, less is more. You can always add more later. Let's do one more quick recall moment. Imagine someone asks for advice on writing a cover letter that's currently far too long. Answer using less is more. Here's an option. Honestly, less is more here. Try cutting it down to just the essentials. Now, one final scenario. Returning to Jordan for a graceful goodbye at their old job before starting the new position we talked about earlier. Imagine it's Jordan's last day and a coworker is saying goodbye. A basic sentence is, goodbye, good luck. A warmer, more natural version is, it's honestly not going to be the same around here without you, but I'm really happy for you. You deserve this. Not the same without someone expresses that someone's absence will be noticeably felt. You could say, the office just won't be the same without her energy. Repeat, the office just won't be the same without her energy. Jordan might respond, that means a lot, truly. Let's stay in touch. I'll definitely still be around for lunch sometimes. Stay in touch means to continue communicating with someone even after circumstances change. You could say, let's stay in touch even after the semester ends. Repeat, let's stay in touch even after the semester ends. Let's do our very last quick recall moment together. Imagine a friend is moving away and you want to express that you'll miss them while also staying positive. Answer using not gonna be the same and stay in touch. Here's an option. It's not gonna be the same without you around here, but let's absolutely stay in touch. Let's fit in just one more small pair of scenarios before we truly wrap up. Imagine you're returning a rental car and the counter agent points out a small scratch you hadn't noticed. A basic sentence is, I did not do that. A calmer, more natural version is, honestly, I'm not sure when that happened. Is that something that's typically covered, or should I be worried about it? Be covered, in this context, means included or protected under an insurance or rental agreement. You could say, thankfully, that kind of damage is usually covered under the basic plan. Repeat, thankfully, that kind of damage is usually covered under the basic plan. The agent might respond, don't worry, that falls well within normal wear and tear. You're all set. Notice wear and tear returning again from our earlier apartment inspection scene, comfortably reused in a completely different setting. And finally, let's imagine one last small moment. Sitting down for a quiet coffee with Maya at the very end of a long week, wrapping up naturally. A basic sentence is, this week was hard. A more natural, reflective version is, honestly, it's been a whirlwind of a week, but sitting here right now, it kind of feels worth it. Worth it describes something that justifies the effort or difficulty involved. You could say, the early flight was rough, but the view when we landed made it totally worth it. Repeat. The early flight was rough, but the view when we landed made it totally worth it. Maya might respond, I know exactly what you mean. Some weeks just take everything out of you, but they make the quiet moments like this one feel even better. Take everything out of someone means to leave someone feeling completely drained or exhausted. You could say, that hike took everything out of me, but it was an incredible view. Repeat. That hike took everything out of me, but it was an incredible view. Let's add one more full scenario, a work-from-home internet outage, since so much of daily life now depends on a stable connection. Imagine your internet suddenly goes down right before an important video call, and you're calling your provider in a bit of a rush. A basic sentence is, my internet is not working. A calmer, more effective version is, my internet just went down completely, and I've got a call in about 20 minutes. Is there any way to get this looked at quickly? Go down. In this context means to stop working or lose connection. You could say, the whole system went down for about an hour this morning. Repeat. The whole system went down for about an hour this morning. The representative might respond, I can see there's an outage in your area. It looks like it's already being worked on. It should be back up within the hour. Back up. In this context means restored or functioning again. You could say, the website should be back up by tonight. They're just doing some maintenance. Repeat. The website should be back up by tonight. They're just doing some maintenance. You could respond, that's cutting it close, but at least I know it's not just me. Is there any workaround in the meantime, like a hotspot? A workaround describes a temporary or alternative solution to a problem. You could say, we found a workaround until the real fix gets installed next week. Repeat. We found a workaround until the real fix gets installed next week. The representative might respond, good thinking. Using your phone as a hotspot should get you through the call just fine. Get someone through something means to help someone survive or complete a difficult situation. You could say, that extra coffee really got me through the afternoon meeting. Repeat. That extra coffee really got me through the afternoon meeting. Let's do one more quick recall moment before our true closing. Imagine a coworker asks how you managed a video call during an internet outage. Answer using workaround and got me through. Here's an option. I found a quick workaround with my phone hotspot, and honestly, it got me through the whole call just fine. Now, let's bring Maya back one final time for a moment about recovering from that same kind of stressful morning. Imagine she calls later that day to check in after hearing about your internet trouble. A basic sentence is, did you fix your internet? A warmer, more natural version is, hey, I heard your morning was a bit of a disaster. Did everything end up working out okay? A disaster here is used loosely and humorously to describe a stressful, chaotic situation, not a literal catastrophe. You could say, the dinner party was a bit of a disaster, but we still had fun. Repeat. The dinner party was a bit of a disaster, but we still had fun. You could respond, honestly, it all worked out in the end. A little stressful for 20 minutes, but nothing I couldn't handle. Work out, in this context, means to resolve successfully. You could say, I was worried about the schedule, but it all worked out in the end. Repeat. I was worried about the schedule, but it all worked out in the end. One very last exchange before we go. Back with Mr. Alvarez, returning the ladder we borrowed earlier. Imagine you knock on his door to bring it back, along with a small thank you gift. A basic sentence is, here is your ladder, thank you. A warmer, more natural version is, here you go, thanks again for this. It honestly saved me a trip to the hardware store. I grabbed you a little something as a thank you. Save someone a trip means to spare someone the need to go somewhere, usually because something was handled another way. You could say, could you grab milk while you're out? It'll save me a trip later. Repeat. Could you grab milk while you're out? It'll save me a trip later. Mr. Alvarez might respond, oh, you really didn't have to do that, but I appreciate it. Anytime you need to borrow something, just knock. Just knock is a warm, informal way of telling someone not to hesitate or stand on ceremony, literally inviting them to show up at your door without calling ahead first. You could say, if you're ever in the neighborhood, just knock. Don't bother texting first. Repeat. If you're ever in the neighborhood, just knock. Don't bother texting first. That truly brings today's masterclass to its full close. We've now walked through dozens upon dozens of completely fresh, real-life situations, from the bank and the DMV, all the way to first dates, parent-teacher conferences, and a mechanic's waiting room. Every single one built the same way. A natural upgrade, a clear explanation, and constant, gentle repetition, so the language has every chance to actually stick. For one last full circle moment, imagine this. You grabbed coffee with someone new, and you really hit it off. Later that week, you touched up a scuff on your apartment wall before your landlord's walkthrough. Checked in on a friend who'd seemed a little off. And by the weekend, you found yourself stuck at the mechanics, making easy small talk while you waited. No big deal. Just another ordinary week, handled in completely natural English. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Try picking just 2 or 3 phrases from this lesson and using them out loud sometime today. That's genuinely all it takes to start making them yours. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you catch the next masterclass the moment it's live. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.